Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us. There might be a few more people trickle in. When they do, we'll just kind of make cozy and try and make room for as many people as we can. There's a seat right here up front if you'd like to sit, and there's a seat on the bench. Okay, no problem. Bernice, come on up. There's a couple seats up here front. Thank you all for joining us tonight, and thank you for those of you who are on the broadcast as well. We love seeing a full room of people bursting with questions. That's why we do this. We want to make sure that we're hearing from you, and we're grateful that you're here. For those of you who have been to town hall forums before, you'll know that the format, we do have a microphone there, and the reason we have the microphone there is because we are broadcasting this for those who couldn't be here in person. So we do ask that you ask your question into the microphone. If anyone here would like to ask a question and standing at a microphone is not possible for you for whatever reason, raise your hand and I'll come around and make sure we capture your question. Otherwise, we'll just ask people and we'll stay till we answer all the questions. So we'll just do it orderly and make sure we get to everybody and make sure we can address all the comments and questions that come tonight. So again, thank you for being here. We are not going to present, but I'll allow Mayor Concannon a minute to just welcome all of you, and then we'll get started with your questions.
Thank you, Samantha. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming. Is everyone here to listen to me read my State of the City address again? That was a fun 30 minutes. I appreciate you all being here. The idea of a town hall is to give everyone a chance to come in and ask some questions about how their government is running. I've said it before that this is one of the ways we do that, but some people aren't comfortable doing it in a setting like this, so the usual routes are also available, emails, phone calls, visits to the office with any questions you might have, always welcome. But we did pledge to be available at forums like this. I think this is our 5th. I think we've pretty much done once a quarter. Mm-hmm. So we'll continue doing it as long as people want to keep coming in and asking questions. So I appreciate you being here on a cold, dreary, rainy night. It's inspiring that everyone has this level of interest in how their city government is operating. So I appreciate you being here. I look forward to answering as many of your questions as I can. If it's a detailed question that might require a little follow-up or something, we're happy to do that too. We'll take some notes and we'll get back to you with more specific or detailed answers if that's required. I do want to say thank you to the members of the school committee and the city council who are here tonight. I appreciate that. These are our partners in city government. It may be that a question or two that come up tonight, they may want to chime in, and I certainly welcome that. But I do truly consider them partners in what we're doing here, and I appreciate their support tonight.
Yeah, thank you. And Lee is kindly bringing a few extra chairs, so if we have some folks who scraggle in, they'll have a place to sit. Thank you, Lee. Appreciate it. And thank you to Lauren, who's in the back there producing the show for us, making sure those who couldn't physically be here are able to watch it live tonight or later. So with that, let's open up to questions. Who would like to go first? I know this is not a shy crowd, so come on up. There we go. Thank you for being our opening question tonight.
I was just wondering if the city has any plans for the castle or any of the surrounding land as of now.
Thanks, Carol. That's a good question, and I'm willing to bet that many people in the audience have that question on their mind as well. So the question is, do we have specific plans as of right now for the Wyman Castle? Right? I would say the answer is, as far as I know, there are no specific plans for the castle. This will probably be a long answer, Carol, if you want to sit down.
Unless she's going to have a follow-up.
Yeah, unless you have a follow-up. I kind of anticipated a question like this would come up tonight, and certainly happy to offer my thoughts and provide whatever information I have. We had a neighborhood meeting hosted by Councilor Joe Demers maybe about a month ago over at the library on this issue of the old Wyman School castle where does it stand and what information or what input would neighbors and residents like to provide as the city tries to determine what to do with the property. I thought it was a great meeting. Thank you, Joe, for hosting it. It was well attended. I think many of the people here were there. So I won't repeat everything I said over there, but in terms of the process, the only real decision that has been made so far is that the school committee, as is required by law and by our ordinances, has made a determination and voted accordingly that that facility, the old Wyman School, is no longer needed for educational purposes. That's the first step in the whole process. Until they voted that way, it was in the purview and the jurisdiction of the school committee to determine what they wanted to do with the building and the grounds. So once they voted last summer that they did not need it for educational purposes, the property reverts to the city, and then we collectively determine what we think should happen with the property. In order to jumpstart or facilitate that discussion, I sent down an order, basically a request to the city council, requesting the authority to, quote, dispose of the property. And that's the standard approach we take. We did it with the fire stations. We've done it with property in the past. And it really was designed to begin the conversation. City council received that request, sent it to their committee. The committee has that request right now. And as is typical, the way we've done it in the past, usually the ward councilor where the property is located begins to gather information, speak to residents, publicize that we're trying to determine what should be done with the property, basically soliciting ideas, input, feedback that the ward councilor can then bring back to the city council committee to advance the discussion. I know it might seem like it's been a long time and we haven't made a decision yet, but relatively speaking, it's not a long time as compared to some of the other situations and the processes we've gone through. So right now, that's where we are in the process. The ward councilor, I believe is fair to say, is still gathering information, still preparing to report back to the committee that, it's time to take the next steps and start talking about what the city council would like to see happen to that property. When I sent down the order requesting authority to dispose of the property, in committee, I explained that I was seeking the guidance and the input of the council and was willing to work with them to determine the best disposition and or best use of that property. I'm waiting to hear more about that. I appreciate Joe's efforts to spearhead this, and I anticipate further discussions in the community, which will lead to committee meetings where we'll start to dig down what would the city council like the mayor to do with the property. The easy answer, the short answer, and the answer that has happened a few times in the past, and I'm not saying it's going to be this time because we don't know yet, but one of the answers that the council can give to me is dispose of the property according to state law, auction it off to the highest bidder. We've done that before. We did it with the fire station, 2 fire stations. In this case, I don't think we're anywhere near that final determination. There's a heck of a lot more work to be done, and I'm going to work with the city council, its committee, and its ward councilor to advance that discussion. I'm just telling you that that's one of the outcomes. One of the outcomes is that the city council could recommend to me that they would like to see the property auctioned off to the highest bidder. When we talked over at the library, I think people understand that is one of the options. But there was a lot of discussion and input received that perhaps there's a better use for that property. Maybe there's some partnership with some other entity whereby we could preserve the castle portion to continue to look like a castle and work with another entity to develop the property in some way that the neighbors in the city found, appealing. So we heard you, I heard you, I know the councilors who were there heard you, and I expect that will be part of the conversation when the committee picks this back up. It'll be about, sure, option A, we could auction it off. Option B through Z could be any number of ideas to reutilize that property in a way that works best for the city. So Carol, that's a long answer. The short answer is there are no definitive plans right now to do anything with that property. So I hope that's an answer. Hope it satisfies the question. And if there's any follow-ups, by all means, I'll try to answer that as well.
Just one thing I might add as follow-up to that, because I know we have a lot of questions, is there is no decision yet. People want to make sure they stay informed about the decisions and participate in that process. And what I can tell you is that Sue and others have done a great job of, collecting people's names. Joe is really leading this for us. He will hold additional meetings. There will be additional things, and we'll continue to publicize when those things happen so that people can actively voice their ideas and thoughts and opinions into that process. So I just wanted to add that will be an important piece, as we try and do with everything, but we know in particular there's a lot of interest around this.
Yeah. So I do want to appreciate Joe's leadership on this. Yes?
Thank you. Come on, if you don't mind coming to the microphone. Thank you.
So I understand when you say dispose, it could be a number of different things, and it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to knock it down. But my question is, where does the Historical Commission stand on this? And is anybody here from Historical Commission tonight?
Yes, actually, Sue Ellen's here.
Hi.
There's chairs in the front if you'd like to come down and sit. You're welcome to.
So I understand that, when someone wants to demolish a house that they think is historical value for whatever reason, features,
Wait,
what
Sue,
have
would you mind coming up and I'll share the microphone with you?
Excuse me, sorry. Didn't realize that was the mic. So I'm just curious, because something like this is one of the most historic pieces of architecture in our city. So when someone wants to demolish a home, I know there's some kind of review that you all go through. What does that mean for an important piece of architecture like the Wyman School? Isn't there something the Historical Commission has to do?
If someone came along and wanted to develop it and knock the school down, that's where the Historical Commission comes in. They want to alter the building or things like that. That's not really our purview. They can do anything inside of it. But the outside of it, if they're going to alter it in major ways or they're going to knock it down, they have to come before us for a demo delay. We can issue a demo delay.
Okay.
The thing that you have to remember about the demo delay is the Historical Commission can, utilize that, and they can impose a demo delay. We can only delay it for a year. After that, they can do whatever they want with it. Not that I've met too many developers that were willing to wait a year, but
Well,
that's the best that we can, that is the best that we can do. I can tell you, at least from my own perspective, I attended the Wyman School, so,
too.
I will be voting against, them knocking down the Wyman School.
is that a voting process among the
It is. They would, the developer would have to come before the Historic Commission. He goes to the building department first, then he goes to the Historical Commission, and then we decide whether or not to impose that delay or to allow them to knock it down. Having talked to some of the members of the commission so far, I believe this would be, without any question, we'd issue a delay on it at least. But we hope it doesn't come to that.
Yes.
We hope that.
Right,
something
thank you,
else
Sue.
is-
I would say that the historical significance of the building and all available mechanisms and avenues to preserve it are absolutely being considered by the city council's committee. I assure you, they're well aware and they're giving great weight to all of that. I know that to be true. Certainly, Joe.
Yeah, come on. Do you mind?
So after the community meeting that we had. My primary focus would be, at minimum, forwarding to my colleagues a concept of putting a deed restriction on the property to prevent any demolition moving forward. I think that was a unanimous consent from that public meeting that we had. So I think that's my primary goal right now, is to get that deed restriction and put a covenant on the property so that if we ever move forward with either leasing it to an entity, nonprofit or private, somehow getting funding to redo it ourselves to keep it as a municipal building, or even moving forward to a private developer who would be committing to maintaining the castle property, my primary goal is to keep the building up and its historical value to the city. I think I heard everyone loud and clear at that hearing, and I don't want anybody to be under the idea that we plan on knocking it down, because I don't think we'll ever have to get it to the Historical Commission. So I just wanted to be on the record for that.
Thanks, Joe. Thank you, Leanne.
Welcome.
Sorry, I don't know who that was.
That's Joe
That's
Demers.
City Councilor
City
Joe
Councilor
Demers,
Demers.
Ward 4. Everyone knows Joe.
About the condition of the building. It's my understanding that there are at least one leak in the roof that's already caused some damage. What is the city going to do to prevent further damage to the building?
We are aware that there have been there's been some deterioration to the building since it's become the city's issue last July. So we've had the DPW in there looking at it. I'll tell you, we're doing the minimum required maintenance. We're trying not to put too much money into the building in the meantime, probably just enough to keep it from getting worse. That's the straightforward answer.
Is the roof going to be fixed?
I don't intend to spend a significant amount of money. Anything more than patches, I wouldn't expect.
But at least patches so it doesn't get worse?
We don't want it to get worse, yes. Hey, sure.
I'm Sheila. I'm one of 4 generations in my family that went to the Wyman School. I was just wondering, I know the fire stations were closed mostly because Engine 3 asbestos and North Woburn were the same. There was issues with that. Is there an issue with that with the Wyman?
We haven't done an extensive review of the building, but given the age, I'm sure there's some asbestos material in there that will need to be dealt with when redeveloped, yes.
I also read online that there is a proposal to put 225 apartments there.
She's referring to the,
Yeah, that might be some confusion with the proposal across the street. Right now, I have not seen anything written down for any proposal to the old Wyman School. Nothing. So it might be the overlay district for the Tachi property across the street that you're thinking of?
Do you think that's going to affect if you have the Tachi, that's going to be like a major development in down that section with traffic, and if they decide to put apartments where the back of the Wyman, how do you feel that it's already crazy traffic there?
Well, both of those issues would be in the purview of the city council. The Tachi, we call it the Tachi development. What it is right now is a proposed overlay district, which would then provide the opportunity for the Tachi company to actually propose what they'd like to put there. City council is dealing with that overlay district right now, as is the planning board. I'm not going to step on their toes. I'm going to let them go through their process, respect their authority. If and when the overlay district would be approved, the next step would be a petition for the proposed development. Again, in the purview of the city council, they make those determinations on whether those special permits would be approved. And again, any proposed development on the other side of the street at the Wyman School, same thing. So there's a lot of things that I am in charge of, but I also respect when other people are in charge of it, and I don't want to drift out of my lane into theirs.
So I just want to ask one more. So that Tachi development, has that been approved?
No. Again, there's a proposed zoning change that the city council has right now. If that were to be approved, the next step would be the Tachi company putting forward their petition to use that overlay district to develop. If the overlay district is denied,
Yep.
we don't get to the next step.
And has anyone come to you with any great ideas for the Wyman? Has anybody heard a great idea to do, what to do with it?
I heard a lot of good ideas at the library meeting.
Oh, yeah.
The interesting thing is there were probably 10 ideas, all with some merit.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how we're not there yet.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what consensus will look like. And I know Joe and I have talked about this a few times. That would be the goal. The goal would be to find a use for that property that most people can agree on. That's hard to do.
Right.
You know, some people feel strongly about one particular idea and
Right.
don't really want to listen to another.
Yeah.
Our job is to try to bring all these people together, bounce all these ideas around, and come up with something that most people can get behind.
I just feel like there's way too much development in Woburn right now. There's too many apartments, complexes, and this whole area, that's the area where I live. So.
Me too.
And yes, and it just
Me
seems.
me
like-
three.
Especially down the village, all that stuff, nothing, as far as the traffic patterns, nothing was ever changed since the first inception of that Mishawam Road, even though all the new developments and stuff. So I wish they would work on the roads.
Well, I did anticipate a development kind of question tonight because it's a big issue here in the city. It's a big issue everywhere. You know, again, in terms of responsibilities, developments come into the city as proposals and petitions that go before the city council, and they determine whether the special permits that are needed to allow the developments should be granted. And I can tell you, having sat on the council for 10 years, they take it very, very seriously. And they're constantly weighing the benefits to new developments up against, you know, the problems that come with it. They're always doing that balancing act. You know, it's no secret that we could use some more tax revenue in the city of Woburn to be able to support the costs, the ever-increasing costs. So additional development always has to be considered. City council makes the determination as to whether each particular development on its merits, whether the pluses outweigh the minuses. I feel pretty good that the decisions we've been making are strong and they're defensible, but I can assure you that they're made with all sorts of consideration and, you know, due diligence and appreciation for the impact on the city.
Yeah. I just think when developers come in such a big area, that should be the first thing that's talked about, traffic patterns.
Oh, it is.
And the parking lot down there is a disgrace to getting into that village. And there's no crosswalks down there for people to cross to the side there. And I just can't wait for that bridge to be built up in North Woburn.
I'm looking forward to it, too.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If I can use your platform as a public service announcement.
Certainly, Mr. President, welcome.
Perfect segue. Jeff Dillon, Woburn, President of City Council, also Ward 3 City Council. March 18th is the City Council meeting. The overlay for Central Square will be in front of us. So perfect time to come, find out what's going on, and have any questions answered.
How do we find out about this?
The meeting's posted on the city website. It will also be out on the Woburn Daily Times. And I'm gonna give you my card, so you can reach out to me anytime, and I'll keep you in the loop, whether it be a committee meeting or a city council meeting. And also, if you follow Facebook, often on Woburn Facebook residents, it's on there as well.
So the next council meeting is?
March 18th, 7 o'clock, right here.
Yeah, and just as general comment on that, if anybody who, Jeff is wonderful and we'll keep in touch with you, but also for those who want, I can show you how to subscribe to the event calendar, so you get an email once a week that tells you anything new that's been added to the calendar. And then you can always click on those events and see the details. In the case of the public meetings, the agenda and the topics are on there, and I strongly recommend looking at those to see which of those meetings you want to come down to. And they're also always available on broadcast, the main city council meetings, and available on recording as well.
And just to follow up on your question about the developmental movement, some of these are coming from government mandates to us as well. So, the MBTA Communities Act.
Down by the,
Correct. And that's a perfect way to just click on the MBTA Communities Act of Movement on the internet, and you'll see that many of us in city council felt that was an overreach. I dare say all of us felt that, but our hands were tied, and that is something, as well as the accessory dwelling units that many people don't know about, that took effect in the beginning of February, which gives by right in residential areas, R1 areas, you can have a 900 square foot rental. Does not have to be owner occupied. Come into the building department, you do have to follow the standard building regulations. But again, another mandate that we have to follow. So sometimes the perception is, why did city council allow that to go through? These are things that come down to us, and I call them an unfunded mandate. So,
Thank you, Jeff.
thank you.
Thanks, Joe.
Next question, please. Comment or question, I should say. Yeah, come on up.
Hi, I'm Wendy Essigman, and I'm a member of the Woburn Senior Center.
Hi, Wendy.
And I would just like to revisit.
And a walking phenomena, I just have to say.
I'd just like to say happy spring, everybody, and the snow has melted, and we'd like to know a little bit more if it's the possibility of an off-road walking path for my walking group. And also to say I visited with another member of the group last week, the Wilmington Senior Center. It's gorgeous.
The walking trail they have?
We did to see the walking trail. There was still a lot of snow on the perimeter, but we did get to walk. There's also walking around the direct outside of the senior center with covered for sun, and it was really nice. I wondered if maybe the DPW would come and meet and we could walk the Wilmington, just for idea
We could.
sharing.
To that point, I meet with Marie Lingblom, the senior center director, every other week. And when we met last, we talked about this again. The way we left it was Marie was going to coordinate with your group to lay out what you'd like to see, where you'd like to see it, some ideas. And then we were going to meet back with the DPW to determine how much of that we would be able to do in-house versus having to contract it out to somebody else, depending on how extensive the project is. So I think Marie's plan was, when the weather dries up a little bit, to meet with the group, gather that input, sketch it out, and then come back to us. We'd sit with the DPW and try to determine how much of it they can do. I'll tell you that in the year that I've been here, we've been tasking the DPW with a lot of things that maybe they haven't been doing recently. And each and every time, they've stepped up and they've hit a home run. They've done a great job. So I'm fairly confident we'll be able to do much, if not all of that, in-house. But I need to know a little bit more about exactly what it looks like. What's the path? What's the trail? What's the request for the service? The surface? Is the drainage, natural, or is it going to be more involved?
Because we are a snowfield.
Yeah, those are the things, So I think when it dries up a little bit, that is the plan. But we are still staying true to trying to make that happen.
But,
We have not forgotten.
thank you.
Thanks, Wendy.
While, before the next person comes up, I just want to read, I did get a couple questions and email from folks who maybe couldn't be here in person tonight. So I'm just going to read one of them. This is from Mary Paris. Since we now have a grant writer on staff for the city, do you have a summary of the impact thus far and expected grants we're actually pursuing, financial and less quantifiable overall beneficial outcomes to the public? I think it's a wonderful resource for the city. That is not me editorializing, that's actually in the question, and would like to hear more about plans for grants.
Sure, that's a good question, and our grant writer is with us tonight. Kevin McDonough is the city's new grant writer administrator. He's been on board since late spring, and he's doing a phenomenal job. We brought him in, I think the goal was to try to take advantage of, grant funding that's out there, federal, state, nonprofit, whatever it might be, better than we had been. Because we do have people throughout city government who have stepped up and sought and obtained grant money over the years, from the fire department, police department, engineering, recreation. We've had people who have been doing that as part of their jobs, and they've done very good work. We've been able to receive a lot of funding here in the city. But we felt like a coordinated effort was in order. We needed somebody to kind of corral all of that. We weren't seeking to shut down the efforts of all those people who were doing good work, but rather to bolster and support and assist those people. So Kevin has been doing that. He's been working with each of our departments to identify needs, to identify potential grants, and making those connections. In some instances, he stood as support to the department that's working the problem and seeking the money. In other cases, he's taken it and run with it even further to take the burden off of the department. And I appreciate the flexibility he's been exercising with each of those departments. We don't want to pull something away from somebody who's doing a great job. If they want to keep working with it, then we support them. If it's too much for them, they found a great idea, but they don't have the time or the bandwidth to pursue it any further, Kevin takes it over and runs with it. We did have, as of the end of the calendar year, a bit of a summary that Kevin had produced, status thus far, dollars obtained, grants in process, success rate, all of that. We could probably share that with Mary. Kevin has a spreadsheet to that effect. But I'll tell you, there have been, I would say off the top of my head, close to a dozen success stories since Kevin's been on board. There's one in particular, there's a few, but there's one in particular I want to highlight. And it's not from the federal government, it's not from the state government, it's actually from the utility companies. It's a position called the Energy Advocate. And the utility companies would fund a position in the city of Woburn for 3 years, and that person's job would be to publicize and interact with the residents and businesses of Woburn, to publicize all the available funding sources and rebates and all of that to try to bring down your utility costs. So the utilities would be paying the salary for this person. Person would work for us and essentially work for you to try to get out the word and find opportunities to bring people's bills down, which I think is a home run. Kevin obtained that grant for us, so we are getting that position. We're going through the process now of signing the contract and beginning to try to locate the person to fill the position. And then there's a second one that's in process, and we have our fingers crossed that we may get this one. It's a municipal energy position where this person would work for the city, and their focus would be working with each of the departments in the city and each of the facilities to determine ways that we can reduce our own energy cost as a city government. I'd love to get that one as well. And I think the fact that we got the first one puts us in a good position, hopefully, to get that second one. Those are two things that we just don't have the ability on our own to make those things happen. And to get funding from other entities is a home run. It's huge. It's the difference between doing it and not doing it. And I think it would lead to tremendous savings for the residents with the first position and our city government if we're able to get the second one. Not to say we don't continue to explore ways to reduce our own costs. We do that every day, all day. But this would be a position when that's that person's main focus. So I'm excited at the prospect of getting the second one. But all in all, in answer to Mary's question, I think it was a position that was long overdue. I've already seen tangible benefits, and I've also seen the relationship building that Kevin has been working on between the various departments. So I think, whatever, 10 months in, I would rate it as a success.
I'd also say Mary is actually here, hiding in the back row, so
Where is
she
she?
did make it after all. I could have made you ask the
Mary.
question. Sorry, I didn't see you there.
Yep.
Yeah, we'd be happy to. And there are lots of other examples. I will tell you, the grants that I'm working on with Kevin are still in process, but I'm very hopeful and appreciative of the work he's doing to help me both identify grants that are applicable to the work that we're doing and help us smooth the process out. And certainly we team up and we contribute, but he handles a lot of the stuff that I wouldn't have time to do and wouldn't be able to go in there without his help to make sure. And equally importantly, once we win a grant, he makes sure as we take advantage of it and manage it. You know, if you've ever done a grant yourself, you know that there's quite a lot of reporting you have to do after you have secured it and you try and use it. And he makes sure that we do those things correctly so that we, the grants we do get, we actually are successful at, and we don't lose those opportunities.
And one of the key components of Kevin's job is to bridge the gap between the city side of your government and the school department side of your government. He's been working with the school department to identify funding sources to solve some of their problems as well. They don't have a dedicated grant writer over there, so we've made Kevin available to them, and he's been working closely to try to find ways to get somebody else's money to solve our problems. So, thank you, Mary.
Other questions? Comments?
Good evening, Ms. Mayor. Thank you so much for having this opportunity.
Sure.
My name is Bernice Friedman, and I'm here with my daughter, second grader at Shamrock, and I'm also the school rep for the Redistricting Advisory Committee. I am curious to hear what your vision is for our schools as our community continues to grow. You know, redistricting is a very complicated issue, and there's a lot of emotions involved with that. Would love to hear also where you think we should be prioritizing our resources to relieve the pressure at the schools while at the same time addressing issues that we currently have, like the leaky roof at the Shamrock. Thank you.
Thank you, Bernice. So I'll answer the last piece real quick first. Kevin McDonough, our grant writer, is working with the schools right now in the early stages of trying to secure, some grant money for that Shamrock roof. It's a huge expense. We're working on other solutions as well, but Kevin's got a lead towards probably the first of 7 steps to try to identify some funding for that particular problem. You know, my vision for the schools, I guess I would say, if you opened your tax bill at the beginning of the year, you saw a significant increase in the taxes you pay. And that is largely driven by the increase in the school budget for FY25. And none of us, city council, school committee, or me, none of us took that lightly. We knew that if we invested that type of money in the school system, it was going to lead to tax increases. We all pay taxes here, we're all in the same boat, and we know what Woburn can and can't afford. So that was not an easy decision to vote to invest that type of money and to have that type of increase in 1 year. But in working with the school department and the school committee all last spring leading up until June, and working with the city council, we all felt strongly that those investments were necessary to bring us up to where we should be. And again, it was not an easy decision. But I think the fact that we voted to do it, and we swallowed hard, and we withstood the fury when the tax bills were opened, should demonstrate our commitment to the schools. I'll also say that I understand that those type of year after year after year dramatic increases are not sustainable. So while we're looking at the budget in every department, but certainly in the schools, one of the pieces of the puzzle has to be, don't just tell me what else you need. Tell me what you might be able to do without. Is there something that we can do differently, that we can save some money? And they do that, and I appreciate their cooperation. I think last spring we met almost a dozen times in my office over the course of the spring with the school department for hours, and just dug deep into every single thing and tried to identify any way to save money, and tried to make sure we could justify any instances where we were spending more money. My vision for the schools is to try to make sure that we provide the very best opportunity for every single one of Woburn students. Understanding that on our side of the table, it's our job to provide the opportunity, but there are other pieces of the puzzle that have to happen to equal success. So none of us can guarantee that if we spend $10 million, you know, every kid's going to go to an Ivy League school when they graduate Woburn High. None of us are pretending to promise that. We provide the opportunity, the environment, the skilled teachers who are imparting the knowledge, and then the other side of the equation kicks in, a strong support system in the family that values education, that sends the kids out the door in the morning with an appetite for learning. You know, that's the rest of the piece of the puzzle. There's only so much of that we can control. But again, I think the significant investment last year alone should demonstrate how much we prioritize education here in Woburn. I don't know if there was more to your question?
If I may ask
Yeah, please.
This is a hot topic among parents and in our school.
Redistricting.
Yes.
I knew there was another
redistricting,
piece, yes.
And specifically the proposal for the
Yeah,
modulars.
thank you.
If you could
Thanks
just
for
address
reminding me.
that.
So redistricting actually came up, not the first time, probably every couple of years it comes up, but it came up last spring at budget time. And it came up in the context of capacity and whether we have enough room in Woburn schools to adequately support the number of students we have. And I understand it's not a simple math equation. But to reduce it to that for a minute, if you look at the number of students and the number of available seats, we have capacity. Granted, many of those students come with particular needs that don't just fit into a standard ratio. I understand that. But the overall capacity does exist for the number of students in Woburn and the number of available classrooms and seats. That's where redistricting came in. If we move it around, can we provide a more equitable educational experience where you don't have 25 kids in this classroom and 13 in this classroom? Is there a way to, to improve that environment? That was a significant part of our budget discussions last year. And the school committee worked hard to get to a point where they thought maybe redistricting could be done for this current school year. And then they thought better of that. I think they felt that it would have been a rushed decision, or they didn't have complete confidence in the decision. So they stepped back and agreed to pick it up again this current year. And I applaud that. I think that has to happen. I think we have to redistrict our schools better than they're currently structured. I think we have to. And I understand that there's some negative impacts to that. I think anyone who's been paying attention understands that means you might be, moving a kid from this school to that school while the next street over, his best buddy is going to that school. And that's unfortunate. It might be that families that have historically gone to one school forever, now suddenly they're going to a different school. There's disruption that none of us wants to minimize, but I do think it's necessary. In terms of the modulars, the portable classrooms, there's going to be a meeting, I think it's on the 18th. The school committee is going to be presenting to the city council an update on the pursuit of portables, a breakdown of the costs. You know, there's a community down the Cape that has portables available. School committee's going to present this idea to the council. It'll be an opportunity for the council to ask questions about the details, the specifics, exactly how much does it cost? Where would they go? How would they be utilized? You know, give the school committee a chance to explain their rationale for this request that the city spend money on portables. It's been my position all along, and I think we're in a point now, it's almost like this, it's a race to the finish, but it's been my position, I would have preferred to see a redistricting model, a robust redistricting model, and then after that, determine whether we needed portables. Reasonable minds can disagree, and I respect the school committee and their approach, but that has been my position. I would have preferred do a significant, robust, you know, focus on capacity kind of redistricting. Show me what that looks like, and if at the end of all that, you need modulars or some other space, I'm listening. I'll be open to that discussion. Right now, I think what's happening, and the school committee members here that could correct me if I'm wrong, I think what's happening is that there are parallel tracks of redistricting, the with modulars and the without. It feels like the with modulars option is a little further ahead than the without, but I think either option is still, they're both being considered. I don't think we've closed the door on either option. I'm looking at James and Jesse in particular.
Jesse, if you want to come to the microphone, you can.
So I'm going to listen carefully on the 18th. I'm going to listen carefully to what the city council asks for questions and what their feedback is, because at the end of the day, if we go the modular route, generally speaking, the request is that the city of Woburn spend $5 million to buy 30-something modulars and place them on a site. That's a lot of money. We just talked a little bit about the taxes. Believe me, I think about the money we spend every minute of every day. So I'm very, very cautious about a $5 million expenditure for anything. But I'd give the mic to Jesse. Jesse Wetzel from the school committee.
Hi, everybody. Jesse Wetzel from the school committee. And first off, thank you, Mayor Concanon, for your support with the budget last year, the city council as well, and for all the support. Our tours on Friday are fabulous. So we really very much appreciate it on the school committee. And in answer to the question on what we're looking at for the redistrict in terms of with or without modulars, last night at the school committee meeting, there were maps presented to the community, and those maps do currently only have options with modulars. That's not to say we can't go back to the consultant and say we want maps without modulars, and that's also not to say the maps that we saw yesterday are going to be the maps we select. Right. We expect a lot of drafts, and we have a great working group. Ms. Friedman is on that representing the Shamrock, and we actually have representatives of all of our elementary and middle schools on that working group, as well as principals, school committee members, administration. So we're very open, and we're listening to the community and trying to gauge a lot of community input as we're looking at this. It's very important because we understand this is an emotional thing to do a redistrict, one that hasn't been done since 1989. Yep. And there are 4 generations in some cases of families that have gone to a school. So you know how you have kids and you think this is where they're going to go. So we are taking all of that into consideration as what we're looking at. But right now, the current maps that we do have do only include modulars. And we do come before the City Council on March 18th, where Chair Crowley and Dr. Crowley, Superintendent of the schools, will be giving a presentation quite robust about the modulars and the expenses that go with those, both purchasing them, transportation, renovating, where they would go, things that we would need to do to prepare them for an early childhood program, which is what we're looking at to use those modulars for. Our early childhood program is our public preschool, and that's currently housed at 2 different schools right now, so the goal would be then to have that in one building. Not to get too much into to anything, but thank you again for your support. We very much appreciate it.
Thank you, Jesse. That's good information. And I appreciate working with you and the committee. And Jesse alluded to it. Every Friday morning, members of the school committee, members of the city council, the superintendent, we tour a different school in Woburn. We spend maybe an hour and a half walking through the schools, talking with the principals, the teachers, the students, the staff. I find it really helpful because when we review a budget, it's a lot of numbers and some names, but when we go into a school, we get to see exactly what the money's being spent on. I can tell you we get to see the significant needs in our schools, the needs of our students. It's a real eye-opener. And what it's done for me, certainly this past year, it's confirmed to me that the investments that we made last year that led to those higher taxes for you, they were necessary, they were worth it, and they are actually bearing fruit. We're seeing good things happen for our students based on the money we're spending. So I go there, number one, because it's fun to see the little kids, but number two, because it does give me confidence that we made good decisions at budget time. Bernice, I hope that answered your thing.
I'm Marlene McArdle, and I am here to question if the town has, or the city has, $5 million to spend on modulars. You just went over how much we've increased our taxes,
Right.
and why the school committee has now come up with a plan that plans on the modulars. They didn't do one for without the modulars, which I think they should have done in the first place. They've been working on this for almost 2 years. And it just seems ludicrous that they're putting a proposal together that is going to cost the town $5 million. And I want to make sure my taxes aren't going up again because of what the school committee is determining.
Okay.
And if they had the choice, if you go back, before they gave back the Wyman School, they could have kept the wing, the newer wing, and put money into, I don't think, by the state law, they had to revamp the whole building to bring it up to code. They could have used the back end of it to use it for a preschool, and they instead gave it back to the town. So I don't know what the school committee's been doing, but they're not looking out for the dollars coming out of my pocket for taxes, unless you're telling me we have an extra $5 million for the modulars. I think that's great. If you've got the money, I'm with you 100%.
So
I don't think you've got the money.
There's a lot in that question, and thank you for the question. So just to clarify, and not to speak for the school committee, they're perfectly capable of speaking for themselves, but the two routes, the with modulars and without, it's my understanding that they're both still on the table and still available. They're just prioritizing option A with modulars right now. It's certainly in advance of the March 18th meeting. And if it becomes apparent to them that modulars are not going to happen, that the city council is not going to approve an expenditure for modulars, I think they still have the capability to pivot back to the without modulars redistricting option. And I have no reason to believe they wouldn't do that. In terms of whether we have an extra $5 million lying around, the short answer is no, of course we don't. The longer answer is that because of the way we manage the city, we do have a stabilization fund. We have the equivalent of a savings account. You have a checking account at home and you have a savings account. We do have a savings account, and we do have significant money in there. It's often termed a rainy day fund. You know, what do you do when the ceiling collapses and you need some emergency funding? That's what that is essentially for. But we have a robust stabilization fund out of which we could take $5 million. Before I considered that, I would have many more conversations with our financial team, with our bond rating authority, all of those people who have eyes on the stability of Woburn's finances. So before I even entertained the notion of taking a significant amount of money like that out of our stabilization fund, there would be many, many more discussions. And I know the city council, I can bet they feel the exact same way about that. So there is money in the savings account, but that doesn't mean we would simply write a check $5 million without our due diligence.
Hi, Susan Tifo. I have a quick question.
Sue?
I'm started this little committee to help out the Wyman Castle, and we just want to know when everybody is willing to work with us to go over ideas. Would love to meet with Joe and city council people to go over all the ideas that people have been emailing me.
Yeah, I mean, I think the beginning of that was at the library.
Right.
I mean, that was, I think, probably the first step in working together. And I expect the city to continue to work
Oh, good.
with that group, any group of interested residents across the city, absolutely.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
So, Joe, just let us know.
Yeah, Susan.
Perfect.
Give me a call, email me anytime.
Okay.
I'm willing to meet with anybody.
Perfect. Great. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you, Susan.
Did you want to come up?
On that same theme, I'm Elizabeth Kavicki.
Hi.
The same theme, I wanted to urge for restoring the playground behind the Wyman School. It was originally a field, there were no fences, kids played back there. In the 20s and 30s, when my dad was a little boy, there was a cow back there, and the kids made baseball bases from the cow pads, and it would be lovely to continue the tradition of a wonderful place to play for children behind the Wyman School. I've heard that anytime a school has passed from active use in Woburn, it's become a park, and this is something that would be great for the children of Woburn. And right now, too much of it is paved. It could just be restored to grass and some trees and playground equipment. That's mine.
So I would say that it's been my experience that anytime a school has been closed and/or a city building has been shuttered or disposed of, the one constant is that the neighbors and the residents of the city have had an opportunity to weigh in on what they would like to see there, and we're providing that here. We intend to Susan's point, we're at the very beginning of the process. As is typical, the ward councilor takes the lead on generating the interest and the feedback, and then brings that back to the committee to make determinations on what they think should happen to the property. And then they would recommend to me, like I said, either auction it or some sort of development that, the neighbors support. In recent past, the schools that have closed, the Clap, the Herald, the Plimpton, they did become parks. And I think the notion of at least some of this land being, park space, that was brought up at the library meeting. I think I'd say that's on the table. But again, it's one of those probably 10 competing ideas that we're going to have the process, let it bubble up, and then when we reach consensus on what we think most of the people could support, I think that's the path for this project. In the meantime, to be candid, I don't see the city investing hundreds of thousands of dollars or $1 million to put a playground there anytime soon. I don't think that would make any sense while it's, being discussed, some other future development. So I think for now, I don't see us investing a lot of money in that back playground area until this picture starts to get a little clearer.
I'm Alva Couch. I have an 18 Clinton Street. I'm an abutter of the playground. This house of ours has been in the family for almost 100 years. It's 100 years in 2026. I have a simple question for you, and I don't have any idea of the answer, of whether there is an answer. You said that that the funds are short for upkeep of the Wyman right now. Is there a charitable fund that we could donate to help you out?
There isn't one currently established, but we could talk with the city solicitor and see whether that's doable.
It would have to be a charitable fund, given the source of the funds.
Yeah, and just to be clear, I'm not saying we're ignoring the building or abandoning it. I'm saying I don't intend to spend significant money other than minimal maintenance to keep it from getting worse. That's, hopefully that's clear. Like, I don't want to abandon it and walk away. I just don't want to throw good money after bad. Hi.
Cindy Carey, Wyman Street. Just quick question, where are we on the water meters for the city? I mean, we all like our water bill the way it is now. Just wondered where we are in that process.
The short answer is status quo for now, from my perspective. I have not had an uprising to demand we do it otherwise. So, status quo for now. Thanks, Cindy.
Michael Beninati.
Mike.
I'd like to ask the mayor a question. What is the status of the City of Woburn's open space plan that the Recreation Commission is supposedly working on?
I think the answer would be the same, status quo. I would have to check with the Recreation Commission to see if they've advanced that at all. I would say the current plan, as old as it might be, remains the current plan.
Is the Conservation Commission involved with that plan also?
I honestly don't know, Mike. I'd have to look into that.
And I'm looking forward to reviewing it, since I've done reviews, my wife and I, on past plans and rewritten some sections of it. So that's why I'm interested in it. And I think it has something to do with the spare acreage at the Wyman School. So I am interested in the current status.
I'd have to get a follow-up to you on that, Mike. Okay, thanks.
There are a couple of projects, I don't know if you want to mention them, Furlough Field and Splash Park and things that are progressing, that were part of that open space parks plan that hasn't been updated, but there are things that are moving forward.
Yeah, we do. We have a few parks being upgraded and re-envisioned throughout the city, and a lot of the credit goes to the Recreation Department, Rory Lindstrom, the Engineering Department, Jay Corey, and now Alex Rizicki, Kevin McDonough. City Council has supported these efforts throughout the city. We have upgrades happening at Ferullo Playground, Leland Playground. We have a splash pad going in at the Green Street Pool, the old pool. I'm dating myself. This spring, you'll see that. So yeah, there are recreational parks improvements happening, but to the particular question about our open space plan, I'm going to need to dig deeper into that, Mike, to get you an update. It may well be that the Rec Commission and the Conservation Commission are advancing that, and I'm just not aware of it right now.
I appreciate that.
Okay.
Yeah. Do you mind, just so the broadcast can hear? Thank you so much.
Sorry, I'll just make this brief. About the school redistricting. I know we have a lot of immigrants that have come into Woburn, and have we received any federal or state funds to support that in our schools?
Yes. Okay. They've recently, newly arrived migrant families for the last 2 years, year and a half, have been supported by state funding. We've relied on that in our budget. We expect that by the end of this calendar year, that program will stop, and we're expecting that the migrant families that are currently living in Woburn will be transitioned to more permanent housing, either in Woburn or outside of Woburn. One of the issues that comes up with that is when a homeless student is attending Woburn schools, we are responsible for the transportation. So if if one of our students moves out of town but would like to continue to go to Woburn schools, we have to pay for that transportation. And that's an ever-increasing cost in our school budget. And we're looking at increases in FY '26, even as we're in the very beginning stages of that budgeting. The school committee's first pass at their budget includes increases to homeless transportation, and that's one piece of it. But short answer, yes, we've been getting state funding for those newly arrived students. Whether the state funding is a pass-through for any federal funding, I'm not sure. I just know that the name on the check is the Commonwealth when it comes to us.
Come up.
Playground, since I live 3 houses away from the Herald, I don't know what's going on. I figured I should ask what the status is of that, that's all.
So step one, as you know, Leanne, was tearing down the building. And, you know, that was, I give a lot of credit to President Dillon for advocating vigorously for that. We figured having an open field for now would be better than a vacant building. So we included close to $800,000 in the budget last year to tear that down. That went pretty smoothly, I think. So now we have a field there. The next steps would be, as you probably know, you may or may not know, there's a new park going in over there. It's in 2 phases. One is an active, typical kind of park with you know, activities for kids and others. And then in the back, it's more of a trail with a resiliency component. That would be phase 2. Phase 1 would be the park out front. That's our focus right now, ensuring that we have all the funding in place to be able to proceed with the active park piece while we continue to pursue the funding for the back piece. So step 1 that you'll see first is that park out front. Jeff had a meeting maybe a month ago with some updates on that. Tell me if there's anything I missed there, Jeff.
Mayor Concanon, you have it right down. Again, we're just looking and continuing with Kevin McDonough's help as well involved, all the department heads, the whole City Hall team, and still looking for more funding to complete what we'd like to get done up above. And I have a verbal commitment from Justin's Voice just the other day to a private organization that when it's time to do the park, they're going to donate $5,000. So
Very nice.
I'm really happy to hear that. And it's just another step to show the community we're in, how we come together to make it better than it can be.
Yep.
So,
Great.
again, you got it right on, and just trying to get some more money and get that top half done. And the bottom half is looked at as a pretty much a separate part of the overall plan, and that's coming in the future as we can get more federal and state money.
Very good.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jeff.
So I know we're a little bit after 7. We thank everybody for being here. We'll stay until if there's more questions. I know some of you have to leave. Don't be shy. It's okay. But anyone else have any comments or questions you'd like to share with us tonight? Yeah, come on up.
Hi.
Laura, this is for me. So if funding is being found for the other playgrounds, why couldn't that be done with the same concept for the Wyman School playground or like the field development or anything like that?
Well,
Just out of curiosity.
We have our eyes open for any and all funding opportunities, and if we can find some funding that can help add to what we do at the Wyman property, we certainly will. I don't think it makes sense to build a park at the Wyman property anytime soon and then have whatever this process yields, tear it all up because we're doing something else.
But like it could be included in the future.
Oh, sure.
And
Absolutely.
Then that would be the same concept could be applied
Oh, yeah.
to the fields or whatever is there.
Yeah, I mean, a similar process led to Clap Park and led to, you know, the project at the Herald. Absolutely. That, you know, Kevin dreams about grant funding.
Okay, well, that's an amazing opportunity.
We're always on that.
Something that we talk about.
Yeah, yeah.
Awesome.
Yep.
Thank you, everyone.
Anyone else? Yeah,
Sure.
come on.
For the record, Catherine Shaughnessy, 31 Scott Street.
Hi,
Are
Catherine.
there any thoughts to updating the master zoning plan? It's 39 years old now, and I think it's time.
Yes, we've been talking about it. As you know, it's a big undertaking. Fortunately, we have a mini what's that? Well, maybe we'll call you back. You can help with the next one. We've been talking with the planning director and the planning department about that. It is time. It's a big undertaking. It's usually done with outside consultants, costs, significant amount of money, but it's probably time for that. As I said, the good news is we were successful, again, through a grant, in obtaining enough money to hire a consultant to do what we would call a mini master plan in the northeast section of the city up in New Boston Street. As you know, there's a bridge being completed up there that's going to open that area up. It's also in the news lately that the state is contemplating a significant redevelopment of the Anderson Regional Transportation Center up in that area. So it certainly looks like that's going to be the next big area of development here in the city. So with that in mind, we sought and were able to obtain grant money to help us plan for that instead of simply reacting to what comes in front of us, maybe get ahead of it, come up with some ideas on ways to zone that property and to create, I guess, sow the seeds to create an environment where we control the type of development that comes in rather than simply react to the next petition that comes in front of the city council. So we got about $115,000 to do that, and we expect, actually I got permission from the council to sign that contract, so we expect that to begin very quickly. So it's a mini master plan, so it's at least a step in the right direction. To your point, the long-term master plan, yes, it's something we need to be doing, and we're discussing that now.
Anyone else?
As I said in the beginning, sometimes someone has a question, but they don't feel comfortable standing up at a microphone. That's fine too. You can always send me an email, call the office, stop in and visit. The city council is always available to take phone calls and questions. We talk every day, all day. If they get a question or concern, they know they can bring it to me, and we work on solutions together. So if you have something percolating right now, but you don't feel comfortable, you can call me tomorrow.
Thank you all for coming tonight. We're grateful for all your comments and questions and your time today, and we look forward to seeing something in the future.
Thank you, everyone.